What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports NBA Hardwood Show. We're here breaking down tonight's NBA slate, and it's a Thursday, and typically Thursdays AP's here. I'm covering him today. And also, typically on Thursdays, we have a bit of a quieter slate, right? We're not really used to 9 games on a Thursday, so got a lot to discuss. We'll bring you in first, DC. How is it going? Obviously, we got football tonight, too. We got the Seahawks and the Cowboys. We just had Big T and JSU finish up the free show, so if you want, check that out afterwards. It's over here on the YouTube channel that you should subscribe to if you don't. But, DC, how are things going for you? And you pumped for another night of football?
Yeah, absolutely. Didn't get a chance to watch the JSU Big T show. Hopefully we'll fire that up between NBA lock and the start of the Monday Night Football game. I'll say this about actually both the NBA and the NFL slates. It's like sometimes where you want to go is, you look at the numbers and it's hard to get there. We'll talk about the Wolves. I'm a Timberwolves fan. Obviously talking mostly GPPs on the show, like crazy ownership, right? On some of these Timberwolves players with the Anthony Edwards news. And then you look at the NFL game, right? Vikings, Seahawks. I'm seeing like 92% of bets on the Cowboys, which does worry you a little bit, right? Like it seems like when you think about that game in your head, like, oh, Cowboys just going to absolutely slaughter them, defense going to go off, all that stuff. But you got to be careful, right? Buying into the same narrative that everyone and their mom is buying into as well. So, yeah, one of those nights for me where I might have to go against what I think is going to happen because sports are unpredictable, right? Shit happens all the time. We think we know exactly what's going to happen. It doesn't always turn out that way. So kind of a weird night of sports for me, but excited to get your 2 opinions on all that stuff. And, yeah, hopefully pick some winners on the show.
Yeah, it's like what my one buddy said. He's like, whenever I was at like Thanksgiving or like Christmas and my mom's like talking about buying crypto, that was his sign to always get it.
Yep. That's what tonight feels like to me, honestly. Yeah.
It's always a fun talking point. I mean, dude, Seattle does look – I mean, obviously we'll get to basketball. We'll talk about the Timberwolves and everything. But, Bryce, we'll get some football takes from you first before we dive in. Seattle's obviously a team that, Geno Smith has been banged up. And I don't know, it seems like there's nothing to love there. But DK Metcalf has been hurt all year. Do you got any football takes first before we dive in and thoughts on NBA yet, Bryce?
Well, it seems like a slate where people are going to play way too many Cowboys onslaughts in like 5-1s. So
it's what everybody wants to play, right? Like you look at that game, you pull it up on your phone, and
I'm probably going to play no 5-1s and just kind of play it. Like it'll be a Cowboy shade at 4-2 or like 3-3 for sure. Like I doubt I'll have many Seattle onslaughts, but I mean, like it's just really hard to fade Dak and CD. So like I could even see like a 4-2 Seattle being okay. I obviously wouldn't go any 5-1 Seattle, but like say CD and Dak just go nuts. Like, you could easily see it be like a 4-2 slate. Charbonnet's pretty cheap for, you don't love a road running back in this spot, but he should take most of the passing down. So like, he's probably my favorite Seattle piece. Cause I mean, you need some of them. They priced up JSN. The thing that really stood out to me on this slate is, my value cutoff is normally a point, like for guys that I keep in my pool, and I don't really see any cheap guys that clear that. So on a slate where you want to jam studs, it's going to be a little tougher because there aren't like any 200 cheapies that will even see the field. Like Jalen Brooks is.
I had the same take. I was looking at. I mean, you want to get in the captain, right? Like CD, Dak, Pollard, maybe a Metcalf. But like, man, there's very little under like 3K that is at all enticing. I do think we'll get to NBA here obviously in a second. I do think it opens up the possibility for cheaper captains, right? When there's no super cheap players that you can just play at all. I think going cheaper at captain does make some sense for NFL.
Yeah, I was just looking at the $200 cheapies. Martavis Bryant's down
there.
Yeah,
man.
I think the cheapest playable guy right now is probably Brooks, and he might not see a snap. So, I mean, he was kind of getting playing time like when they were banged up at receiver, but Yeah, I mean, I think Parkinson is somewhat playable. I mean, DJ Dallas, I think is definitely
DJ Dallas is the guy I'm
playable.
looking at. I just don't
Yeah,
think
he's definitely
Charbonnet
playable.
is good enough to hold the 85-90% snap share that he had last week, right? Like, I just don't think the gap between those two players, obviously, it's up to the coaches, right? We can't decide that, but I bet DJ Dallas has a bigger role in this game than he did in the last one.
Yeah, the thing about DJ Dallas is like he's a passing down back, and they're likely to be trailing. So it depends on if like last week, Charbonnet got more of the snaps than I expected, but DJ Dallas also fumbled a punt, and
Yep.
Pete Carroll hates that shit. So it's really up in the air to me as to like who gets those like Seattle like dump downs.
The nice thing about DJ Dallas is he's cheap enough where like one garbage time touchdown at 1,200
Or
might
I mean,
be
even
enough.
one garbage time drive where he gets like 2 or 3 catches is going to be enough.
So
Like,
cheap.
I mean, if anyone scores, 5 points down there, it's likely that they're going to find their way near the top, just because of how thin it is.
Agreed. Yep.
For sure. It's definitely going to be a fun NFL slate. But we do got NBA to discuss. We got 9 games to go through. Guys, if you could too, please hit that like. We'd appreciate it over here. We got 150 watching. Got 35 likes. Get those likes pumping in there, and we'll talk about these games. Again, we have 9 games to discuss. DC, I'll go to you first. Why don't we give a quick overview of the slate? Obviously, the Timberwolves are going to be a little bit chalkier than normal, like you were saying, because Ant Edwards, that's a big piece of news that he is doubtful for the game, right? Not going to play. We also have a lot of questionable tags on this slate, right? Brandon Miller could obviously help out the Charlotte situation. Royce O'Neal. You got Jimmy Butler questionable. That could obviously put a lot of those Miami Heat guys back into our lives. LeBron James, he's questionable, but who cares? LeBron is always questionable. Victor Wembanyama, that's a big one that we'll have to discuss because obviously if he ends up being out, there's a lot of opportunity on the Spurs there. And then, I mean, the Bulls, I'm not saying I want to play them, but DeRozan and Levine are questionable. Jordan Clarkson, another questionable tag. And Norman Powell, that's another questionable guy. So we have a lot of different tags that could affect this slate, DC. How are you kind of tackling this one?
Yeah, anytime we got, once we're past the first couple of days of the NBA season, anytime you have a 9-game slate, there's almost always going to be a ton of news that you're waiting on, especially on a slate that's as spread out as this one is. We only have just the Portland-Cleveland game walking in that first window at 7 Eastern time. So, yeah, there's going to be all kinds of things to adjust to. I mean, you saw it last night, right? Joel Embiid not on the injury report, gets the late scratch. Like, you can't rely on that stuff, but you don't have to. Leaving spots open in your lineup, I think, makes a lot of sense, especially given when there's more games in play, right? Which there is tonight. So we will probably see some unexpected news. In terms of the news that we're waiting on, yeah, the Anthony Edwards thing is, I mean, if you look at ownership projections, that's dominating this slate. The Timberwolves are, I'm seeing 3 of the top 4 highest projected ownerships are Wolves guys, and those 3 guys are Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid, and Alexander Walker. 2 of those guys come off the bench, Anderson and Reid. And Alexander Walker is not a really fantasy-friendly player to begin with. So that's what stands out to me on this slate. I think people are kind of jumping all over that news. It makes sense. Edwards does a ton for that team. But, yeah, it does seem like a slate where getting a little bit – you don't have to go crazy, but getting a little bit away from the chalk probably seems like a good move tonight, for me at least. Mute him, Mangone.
I'm on mute. Sorry. Bryce, what's your thoughts on some of this news that we're waiting on, right? How are you kind of going to use that to like tackle this slate?
I kind of try and go into a slate like with the mindset that anything can happen because it can. I mean, you saw last night with the Embiid news. I had my sets of 150 to deal with, and then I had two teams in the Millie, both of which were off to good starts because I had Anthony Davis on both of them. So finding out how to swap on and swap off guys was kind of annoying. I ended up too Philly heavy. Got min cashes across it, but nothing near the top. I was just happy I didn't swap off of like the nuts to get on these dusty ass Philly players. Melton was kind of the only one that that really did anything. It's not like you needed to have him. Covington was the one you really wanted, and I ended up with like no Covington, so got that one wrong. It just really annoys me when, I mean, that's NBA coaching for you, but it's like you have to play big against the Pelicans, and they start off, they're in like a 20-4 hole because, they start Marcus Morris at the center, and it's just a hole they were never.
Why did they do that? That was insane to me. Like,
I
why
get
not
that.
Start your backup center. That's been your backup center the whole year. Like, I just don't.
I mean, they didn't do it last game, and Paul Reed played a ton, so I figured it would be the same thing here. But they just got absolutely trounced without a big on the floor to start the game. Was never able to make it up. Nick Nurse was super tilted by the end of the game. Tobias Harris played absolutely atrocious, which kind of did them in. Like, there was a massive free throw discrepancy too, because they didn't have a big, so New Orleans was just pounding them in the paint every time. That game was very poorly managed from Nick Nurse, but you win a title, everyone thinks you're a genius. So it is what it is. But yeah, my main point is while we are focused on Anthony Edwards because he's doubtful, didn't participate, shoot around, I'm definitely not expecting him to play tonight. There are other news pieces that could pop up here and make other cheap plays viable as well. It's a night that you want to be good with late swap. That's probably been the biggest improvement in my NBA game over the years is being able to late swap my GPP teams as opposed to just hand doing my couple teams that I was playing. So yeah, make sure you're on top of that. As far as the Timberwolves go, I think the best chalk here is probably the best chalk of the three, I would say, would be Alexander Walker, simply because he's the cheapest in starts. I don't mind Kyle Anderson. I think Naz Reid would be third for me, and I do like Mike Conley some as well. I think my way to kind of limit my exposure to the game is I don't normally allow 4 players from any team. I know some people do, and the Timberwolves are all cheap enough in this sense to one of the bigger questions for me is, am I going to allow 3 or 4 Timberwolves on my teams?
Yeah, no, that's going to be a big talking point. We'll obviously talk about that when we get closer to that Timberwolves game. I'm with you. I normally like to, max of 4 guys. Sometimes I like to, do 4. It just depends. The situation has to be right. Sometimes I think we just assume, hey, we have to jam all these guys, and I don't think that's the correct way to kind of go about it. So let's keep this thing moving along and go over to the first game up, Portland and Cleveland. And I assume Portland and Cleveland is an easy cross-off game, especially if we feel like we are waiting on any news, right? Anything can happen. What's going to happen is 8 o'clock is when most of the games lock, and we're going to get an update around 6:30 Eastern, and that's going to give us an update on a lot of different situations. And some news might hit that we are not ready for, and might just say, do we need to play this first game? The more I look at the first game, yeah, Donovan Mitchell at 9-3. He has upside at the price. Makes some sense. I don't think it's crazy. Jeremy Grant, we know he can show a ceiling at 7-9, but it still feels like I'm paying a lot for Jeremy Grant, and I don't love the floor. So overall, I'm a full fade, I think, of this game just in general, unless I get a sprinkler to a 1 player. But DC, what's your overall thoughts on this Cleveland and Portland?
Yeah, unless we get news on this game that would be completely unexpected, right? There's nobody really that we're waiting on at all in terms of questionable tags. I just think it would be a mistake to lock much, if any, from this game. Jeremy Grant's been the guy who's been he's been awesome for the Blazers over the last 4 games, 54, 35, 44, and 46 DraftKings points. But he's got a brutal matchup here, right, against Evan Mobley. So I don't want to touch that at 7.9K for Jeremy Grant, which feels like about as high as his price tag has ever been in his career, which makes me hesitant to buy on a player like him anyway. And yeah, I think you nailed it, Mangone. Listen, if you want to play Donovan Mitchell, right, if you got a read on someone in this game, then okay. But nothing in this game is popping for me. And listen, you do limit yourself, right? If you play 1 or 2 players, you think to yourself, I've got all these other spots I can swap to in case news happens. It's better to have a fully swappable lineup if you can. if there's no plays that you really feel confident in, then that's kind of where I'm at with Portland and Cleveland.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like, for instance, if we got word that like Zach LaVine and DeRozan were like, I don't know, like game time decisions, like that would definitely make me think a little bit on, okay, like I definitely think there's one of those Bulls could sit and could open up some opportunity, or who knows what news could hit. Bryce, how about you? I mean, for me, I think Portland prices are still priced up for some of the new roles these guys are in with other guys that were out earlier on where they're just feel too priced up. And Cleveland, they had some injuries throughout the season. It feels like a lot of them are priced up in general. I mean, unless it's like a Donovan Mitchell that falls on a team or two, I just don't think I'm too interested in this game. How about you?
Yeah, both these teams are priced up for sure. They both had injuries to, Mitchell, LeVert. Brogdon was out for a while. So, like, the prices haven't really come down enough to reflect that for me to buy in a subpar matchup. The one guy here that stands out to me is Jared Allen on FanDuel. He's pretty cheap. He can run into a big stock game. His minutes are very solid. He's playable at power forward and FanDuel. So he'll probably I'll definitely have some Jared Allen on FanDuel. But other than that, the game's kind of like a one-off type of spot for me. I'm not going to land on many of these guys either.
That's a good call out with FanDuel. Definitely Jared Allen is someone that I've noticed most slates recently. It's like, okay, I got Jared Allen exposure because he's just underpriced. And he also plays power forward.
I do love that he's power forward eligible. Like, I'm not sure Jared Allen has played a single minute at anything other than center in his entire life, right? He's probably been a center for every minute. I don't know. It's just ridiculous.
I used to love how FanDuel would like not do multi-position eligibility just because it made it so much different. And I think that I think it adds a lot of game theory to like what you're doing, because like say you lock someone, then you're restricting like so much that like now if you lock someone, it's like, I don't know, you're just restricting more of like the guards or the forwards as opposed to like, and like everyone has multi-positional eligibility. So like Jared Allen's the perfect point for that. He should never be anything other than the center.
Yeah, actually, like last night specifically, I remember looking at stuff and I saw I had like a lot of Anthony Davis, and I was trying to figure out how I had all this like Paul Reed with Anthony Davis when I reran it, and I was like, oh yeah, well he's power forward, right? He's got the ability to go there. And there's another guy too. I remember they've been very loose with the power forward center eligibility this season than past years, which has been interesting. But I prefer it when it's tighter, like you were saying, Bryce. Let's keep moving this thing along though. Let's go to Charlotte and Brooklyn. This one starts at 7:30. There'll be 3 games starting at that time period. Piece of news to really discuss here is obviously we have Brandon Miller is questionable, and Royce O'Neal is another questionable tag, but I think the Brandon Miller one would be really interesting because he is one of those bigger starters that does soak up some usage. You'd assume some of that usage just funnels over to Rozier, Bridges, and Hayward, maybe Mark Williams. Then you have the interesting dynamic with the Brooklyn Nets where, listen, I think Mark Williams could do well in this matchup, but I was thinking he could get benched and they can go a little bit smaller. And if they do go smaller, that opens up opportunities for other players to enter the mix. So, DC, I'll go to you first. Break down how you're handling this Brandon Miller news and this Charlotte and Nets side of the ball.
Yeah, obviously we have LaMelo Ball already ruled out, which, of course, changes the entire dynamic of the Charlotte team to begin with. And then if you take Miller off the court too, right? He's questionable. We don't know. Like, there's going to be some minutes there to players who haven't been playing many, right? I'm not sure if that would be Maladon or Ish Smith. McGowan's could potentially play more minutes. Like, all those guys, though, are dirt cheap. We know Rozier obviously going to run the show for the most part. 7,700 for Rozier feels like too much. So it would be the cheap options, I think, from Charlotte that I would most look at. And yeah, Miller missing would put I think a bunch of guys in play, right? Depending on who they started at guard. So yeah, certainly information to watch out for. And then the Brooklyn side, man, like they get Cam Thomas back tonight for I believe the first time in a while. So that's going to suck up. I mean, he's like a 30% usage player. Cam Thomas was, I think, before he got hurt. I mean,
he had like the highest shooting rate when he touched the ball in the NBA or something like that. It was absolutely insane.
In Brooklyn, I don't know. Like I just feel like I don't have a firm handle on this team. It feels like they have like 8 guys who kind of all play the same position almost. It's just like a bunch of wings that they rotate in and out. So I don't find myself on Brooklyn very often, and I probably won't go there a ton with Cam Thomas returning, but can't deny how good this matchup is for Brooklyn, right? Charlotte, fast-paced, little defense. I mean, Brooklyn's probably going to be efficient in this game. The guy I'm looking at in center's loaded. It's kind of like that every night, it seems like, but I think Nick Claxton could have a huge game here. He's been playing more minutes recently. He's got a minutes ceiling, 6,300, really weak interior defense from Charlotte. On a team that just misses a ton of shots, the Hornets do. So, yeah, it does seem like an easy double-double type game for Claxton at that price point. I think he's going to be fairly low owned given some of the options at center. So he's the guy I'm looking at, but there's not a ton in this game I feel super confident about. Obviously, the Brandon Miller news could change that to some degree. But, yeah, these are 2 teams that I think are kind of hard to get a firm handle on.
Yeah, and I agree on the Nick Claxton thing. I thought that was a good point by you. Obviously, going against Charlotte, it's one of those good matchups, right? If you want to look at the flow chart, I'm sure I haven't looked at it yet today. I'll look at it, shortly. But
seems like you could just gobble up rebounds in this one to me.
Yeah, he could absolutely dominate for sure. And I do think the Brandon Miller stuff could actually help Mark Williams stay in the lineup a little bit more, just because, then they just don't have bodies to do the small ball stuff anymore, right? It's just like, okay, we're going to keep it to Mark Williams.
PJ Washington's way more likely to play the 4. You slide Bridges down to the 3, right? If Miller misses, and it's just less crowded for a guy like Williams.
Correct. And I mean, you're fine with benching Mark Williams when you got PJ at the 5 and competent players there, but when you gotta have to start digging deeper into the bench, then you just start thinking, okay, I'm just gonna play my best 5 and call it a day. So that's something to call out there. Bryce, I'll go over to you. Nets and Hornets, obviously Hornets are a team that we always want to target, right? We talk about teams that are on the DFS slate that we just say, hey, look, it's the Pacers, the Pistons, the Wizards. Charlotte is one of those teams to target, but it's not a day where there's a lot of Nets I think we're in love with. I like Claxton. Obviously, Cam Thomas is back, though, and that's going to muddy up some of the ball handling. So how are you handling the Nets here in this matchup?
I like Cam Thomas on FanDuel. He's 6K. If he's going to come back to, even a 30-minute roll at 6K for Cam Thomas, I am going to be a buyer there. You kind of going to have to read between the lines to figure out how much he's going to play. I see most sites have him projected around 28 minutes. So I think that's low. I don't think that they would bring him back to ease him in. And I mean, at 6K, I was playing Cam Thomas a ton on FanDuel just because nobody would play him and because all he does is score, but he can get a couple stops here and there and whatnot. So I kind of like him at 6K. I like DC's Nick Claxton call. I think Cam Thomas back really hurts Bridges, Dinwiddie, and the rest of their scoring options. I think it hurts a guy like Nick Claxton less. They're still gonna go to guys in the paint. So I'm a little off Brooklyn here, other than Cam Thomas. I haven't seen any reports saying if he's expected to have his minutes monitored. That would definitely take me off or comments like that. So I was going to try and watch the Nets presser, but I don't think that's until 6 o'clock. So it's probably what I'll be doing when I get off the show. But yeah, I have a lot of interest in Cam Thomas at 6K on FanDuel. I hate to stick to FanDuel specific plays here, but Gordon Hayward's too cheap for me on FanDuel once again. Anytime you can get him at, how much is he today? 5'6". He's a low 6K player. So that's just too cheap for me. But once again, that's more of a FanDuel specific thing. And then, I think you guys did a pretty good job of running it down if we get the Charlotte value if Brandon Miller's 6. So, yeah, it would make me much more interested in them. I think the guy who would help the most would be Bryce McGowan's. Would kind of be my lean right now, but obviously we'd have to see the starting lineups.
Yep, starting lineups definitely are going to be important. We'll have to see how it all shakes out, but not saying this is a game we're going to jam in. There's, I think, better games on the slate, but there's pieces you had to like a little bit here. Let's go over this next one. We got the Knicks and the Pistons, and Pistons are one of those teams we like to target. Some of the prices are elevated on Pistons options. Like Kate Cunningham is 8-8. In a matchup against the Knicks, like this is just not a great spot to buy Pistons, in my opinion. Not a good paced environment for them. Yes, they kind of control their own pace, but the Knicks will slow it down a bit. Jalen Duren is 7.2K. Not someone I'm buying on tonight. I think you can make a case to buy on a Julius Randle or a Jalen Brunson. But the problem is, do you want to pay the price on someone like Julius Randle? I mean, 8.9K, it's expensive, but we saw what happened to, the Pistons last night with Anthony Davis, right? I mean, the dude had I think he had 40 FanDuel points by, 4 minutes left in the second. Like, big men can destroy it. I mean, I think Mitchell Robinson is in the conversation to have a big game at his price tag. I think Jalen Brunson at 8.4. I'd rather buy on him than Julius Randle, mainly because just the price and the positions and everything like that. But I think Emmanuel Quickly at 5.3K, I think he could have a really good game, especially if, let's say they're up by 15 to close that game out. Well, they might just play Emmanuel Quickly just a little bit more to kind of close that thing out. But it's also Tom Thibodeau. He plays his guys no matter what. So we have to like Knicks here, DC. I'm sure you're going to be on some of these options. So who do you got?
Honestly, I think most of the Knicks are good plays, right? There's something that stands out as like a must play from the Knicks because they're a healthy team, and that's just how NBA DFS works, right? A healthy team rarely has players that that stand out in a huge way, point per dollar wise. I agree with you, Mangone. Quickly, I think, is the best point per dollar play, 5,300. I am seeing him probably come in as pretty big chalk, but makes sense. There's just not that many players, it looks like, on the slate at that price point who you can realistically hope put up 35 or 40 fantasy points. I think Quickly could easily do it against Detroit. I mean, Detroit also, I feel like they just get a pass for some reason. I think I saw that they're 4-44 in their last 48 games. Something crazy. They've lost 15 in a row. I feel like people praise Cade Cunningham and Ivy and Thompson and Duren's. At some point, you got to win some games, right, with the Pistons. So I don't know. I'm kind of off the stand. I played too much Cade Cunningham this year for sure. Give me the Knicks side. Quickly, I think is the best play. I would rank Brunson second, Randall probably third. But, I mean, even Barrett at 6K, you can absolutely consider. And then, we saw what Anthony Davis did. Mitchell Robinson, I think, is in play here. We've seen his minutes upside come through a few times recently, right? 33 and 34 minutes in the last two games. Hasn't scored particularly well, but 5,400 against this team. We saw what Anthony Davis did last night. I think Mitchell Robinson, pretty decent play, 5,400. Problem is, like I mentioned during the last game, center's just loaded, right? You got to get a big score out of your center spot, and I think it's a 2-center night on DraftKings. So, the Knicks look awesome here. I mean, all their guys, I think, are pretty reasonable plays on the slate.
Yeah, I think that's why Mitchell Robinson gets overlooked too, because I think there's a lot of good spots. I don't know. I'm definitely going to be a buyer on Mitchell Robinson today.
And the minutes aren't secure. Mangone, I know you've talked about this too, but when I'm deciding between the value plays, I think most people lean on the minutes. I think what you want is the volatile minutes guys, at least in tournaments, that have high point per minute upside, right? To me, that's kind of where the upside lies for the most part.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that. The minutes are going to be good here for him. I think that makes sense. Bryce, let's go over to you. Pistons, Knicks, obviously not a game to ignore. We got to like some of these Knicks here. Who are some of the Knicks that you're going to key in on? And are there any Pistons maybe that would be interesting options as well?
I'll go over the Pistons real quick just because there's not a ton to go over. I mean, they suck. They're playing the best defense, one of the best defenses at the slowest pace in the NBA. I'm pretty much off the Pistons here. I'm not going to intentionally take them out of my builds, but I can't imagine I'd get anyone at more than 5%. And, even 5% on some of these guys might be over. Everyone was ready to play Jaden Ivey last night, but now, A, he sucked. B, this is an absolutely atrocious matchup. And C, he's priced up. So I think people are definitely be off Jaden Ivey. There is absolutely zero Detroit chalk out there. So if you want to play a one-off Detroit, I'm totally fine with that. I would not go heavy after them whatsoever. They could find their way into my builds, but I doubt it. Bog is still out. There was some news that he might come back from this game, but he's not. Hopefully he adds some stability to that team and they can get on the board with some wins here. I know what it's like to be a long struggling fan of the Wizards, and I think the Pistons are kind of in a similar boat. They're just less egregious. But yeah, moving to the Knicks. Ed, you said it pretty well. Pretty much everyone here is going to be in my pool. I think Quickly is one of the better plays here on the slate. He's only 5.3 on DK. It's a pretty nice price for him. With and especially with like how his game is geared towards scoring. Mm-hmm. Like 5.3 for a guy who's going to shoot the ball, a bunch when he gets it. I like RJ Barrett some too. I think he's a pretty solid play for 6K and under 6K on FanDuel. Randall, he's 8.5 on FanDuel. I'll play him. I think that's too cheap for him. Even though he doesn't score well on FanDuel compared to DraftKings, I'm almost always a buyer on Julius Randle. It seems him and Brunson are like two of the guys I always buy on, just because Tibbs will run him out 36, 40 minutes every game. So I'm always higher than the market on the Knicks in general, and I think I'll likely be here as well.
Yeah, I think the Knicks, like one thing I saw someone in the chat mentioning, this is a lower total than normal. And yeah, like 218.5, this is a low or total compared to some of the other ones on the slate. But in the defense of the Knicks, their team total is like 116, 117, right? It's up there, and that's high for Knicks. So I think we have to like them here in this spot for sure. Let's keep moving along, though. Let's go over to the next game. Last game in the 7:30 window. We got Indiana, we got Miami, and we love to target Indiana, right? Indiana is definitely going to be a spot that I want to target, especially if Jimmy Butler happens to sit. Now, if Jimmy Butler doesn't sit at 8.3K, there's a pretty nice ceiling. And if he does sit, obviously Bam Adebayo at 9.5 would be a center that we could, kind of debate about, because obviously it's going to be a good upside spot for him. If Jimmy happened to sit, you'll look at Duncan Robinson even at 6.3, Jaquez Jr. at 5.8, Caleb Martin at 4.9 would be intriguing. Josh Richardson at 5.3, Kyle Lowry would have a nice usage at 5.6K and probably be one of the best plays on the Heat side of the ball. So overall, I think we would have to like some of these Heat. The Jimmy Butler news is going to be really important. And then on the Pacers side, typically we like the Pacers, but the Pacers they're just so they're so loaded with options to go to, where it kind of thins out their minutes too much, where overall, I don't think I'm going to play any Pacers, because not only their prices are high, but they just have too many options they're going to mix and match and just a bad matchup. So DC, I'll go to you to break this one down. Do you have any takes on how you want to handle the Jimmy Butler news and what you're going to do with some of these Pacers?
Yeah, so I'll start. I'll say I'm with you. I'm off the Pacers in this game going into Miami. Obviously, it's a 238 total. So, but a slower pace than Indiana wants to play, right? And I feel like Miami, very well coached, a good team. I think they'll have a plan to try to slow down the Pacers in this game. I think it'll be successful. I think Miami wins this game. I do think Jimmy Butler returns for this one, just a hunch, if you want to call it that. And I think he's an interesting play at 8,300 in a pace-up game like this. Obviously, Miami, who you're going to play depends on news we don't have, right? With Butler and Duncan Robinson. Looks like he's going to play Duncan Robinson. So yeah. But a good spot for Miami. And I think my favorite play in this game, once you consider ownership, man, Bam Adebayo, people are going to see that $9,500 price tag on DraftKings and be scared away, and I get it. But for one, he's earned that price tag. He's playing amazing this year. His minute ceiling is as high as anybody. He played 42 minutes in a game that didn't even go to overtime last time out against Milwaukee. And, centers scared me a little bit against the Pacers in general, right? Because they play so fast. Sometimes centers can get run off the court, right? They can't keep up with the pace of the game. Bam Adebayo absolutely can. Like, he's a guy who can run the floor as well as any big man. Like, a pace-up game is great for him. It's not great for every center, but it is for him. And we've seen centers crush the Pacers despite a lot of them kind of being, run off the court to some extent. I think Bam Adebayo, especially if Jimmy Butler misses, this looks like a ceiling spot for him where he puts up 60+ at, I think, very, very low ownership because of the price tag. So, yeah, I'm in on Bam. He's my favorite play in this game overall. Obviously, a ton depends on the Jimmy Butler news, but I'm in on Bam regardless. I think he's a really, really fun, low-owned play in this game.
Yeah, and to one of your points, DC, like I always get worried about with those fast-paced spots. I get worried about my centers getting in foul trouble way too much, just because like the more.
Like, I don't want to play like Yusuf Nurkic in this spot, but Bam Adebayo can absolutely keep up with this game.
Correct. I'm with you on that. I thought it was good points you brought up there. Bryce, we'll go over to you. Indiana Pacers, you're in the Indy area, so you get to watch them play. I'm sure a ton or enough. What's your thoughts here on this game? Because obviously some of these Heat options, I think, are going to be intriguing. And this Jimmy Butler news is a huge piece that can just kind of change the slate completely.
I actually get no Pacers games. It's the one team I can't watch because they're in like a huge contract dispute with like Bally Sports, like locally. And obviously, like I'm blacked out on League Pass. So, yeah, I don't really watch any Pacers games.
It's like harder to watch your local team in the year 2023
it's like you need to subscribe to Bally online, and it's like I never really sweat early NBA games. Like I like to sweat NBA if I have a sweat and just kind of try and focus on the work other than that. So I'm just like box score watching, and I end up watching way more West Coast basketball than East Coast basketball just because like after the last game starts, you can actually sit down and enjoy it as opposed to having to wait swap. I don't know.
Bryce,
4 or 5 times throughout the night.
Have you met someone that's been like, man, you know what? I bought the Valley Sports Network because I wanted to watch Pacers basketball. Like, there's no chance.
Yeah, my friends do. My friends love the Pacers. The Pacers.
We got the same thing here in Denver, Mangone, where it's like you go to a
I don't do the same thing.
And half of them don't even have the Nuggets game because of the freaking contracts. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it is annoying. I just don't know many people who have been like, yeah, I buy that one because of the team, I guess. But maybe I'm wrong.
My friends are all in on the Pacers just because they're good and they're exciting. Like Halliburton's like super fun to watch. I think I've been able to make it to 2 Pacers games. One I walked out of after a quarter. I think they were down 50-20 to the Magic, and it was like Thursday night football. So I was like working from the stadium. And I'm like, I turned to my friends. I'm like, you guys really want to see this shit? Because we had all bet the Pacers. I think I had a Wakey's the biggest Magic fan. So I had a friendly bet against him, Pacers over Magic. And I'm like, do you guys really want to watch this shit? And they're like, fuck no. So we're like, all right, we're out of here. So, but the other game I went to was Wembanyama's first game. So that was, or his first game in Indy. So one of his first games. So that was super cool to see. The Pacers are a really fun team to watch. I just don't end up watching much of them. Here is one of the most brutal spots they'll get all season on the road against Miami. This seems like a great spot for Spoelstra to try and, do Spoelstra shit to them. So, I'm kind of off the Pacers side of the game here. I think, I think Buddy Hield kind of stands out to me a bit on FanDuel. What's his price again? Buddy Hield's 5K on FanDuel. That's too cheap.
He's only 5 now still? He was like up a little bit. Jeez.
No, he got priced back down today. I made a note of it because I was like kind of Pacers fade, but Buddy Hield on FanDuel is 100% a play. I think Jimmy Butler is one of the absolute best plays of the slate if he plays. There's not a better possible matchup for him. I don't think they'll bring Jimmy Butler back, because at the start of the season, it didn't really seem like he was trying or he was hurt or something. And then he kind of turned it back on and it was like the Jimmy Butler we knew. And I don't think they'll bring him back and like keep him limited. So if Jimmy Butler's playing unrestricted, I'm going to be in on Jimmy Butler for sure. If Jimmy Butler's out, it's kind of the same shit we had last time. Hawk has become a really strong play. Duncan Robinson would become a really strong play. Lowry would become a strong play. Richardson Martin, it would kind of shift the value from like the Timberwolves to the Heat. And you could play both values and just like play it all, I guess.
Is Jimmy Butler the most like narrative based player?
Yes.
For DFS in the NBA, where it's like like the matchup and stuff doesn't even really matter. It's like you try to predict, is he going to care about the game? Because when he does,
James Harden's up there too. I'd say like if he's at like strip clubs the night before, like depending on what city he's been in. But yeah, Jimmy Butler, it's like playoff Jimmy. We were talking on yesterday's show about the Timberwolves' chances of winning the title, and if we said if Anthony Edwards turns into playoff Jimmy Butler, that's their chance of winning a title.
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
There's no one in the NBA that can really turn it off and on, or I mean, they can all turn it off, but can turn it on like him when he cares. So. Yeah, I mean, this is the perfect stock matchup for him. It's the perfect everything matchup for him. So I really like Jimmy Butler today, given that he's full go, no restriction.
Oh, for sure. We also have some news filing in. SoCan in McDermott, doubtful. That's for Thursday. Today's Thursday. I'm just tripping. I don't know why it's just Thursday. I hate when it does that. But where's Wembanyama, right? That's what I'm waiting for. So let's wait on Wemby. That's going to be important news. That could be something that comes any second here and could change some stuff up for us. That was going to be the next game on the slate to discuss, but I'm going to wait. I'm going to hold on the Atlanta and Spurs game just because maybe we get some Wembanyama news here in a second. Let's go over to Lakers and OKC. Obviously, LeBron is questionable. We don't care. LeBron will probably play. Don't worry about it. I think overall in this game, there's not a lot to like with the Lakers. They're priced up a little bit for this matchup. AD could easily be a contrarian spend. I don't need to get there. Same with LeBron. I think there's other options I'd rather get to. I don't love attacking the Oklahoma City Thunder that much. It's also the second night of a back-to-back. But again, if one of these guys happens to sit, then everything would change. Then you got the OKC side of the ball. SGA is 10.5K. It's a great matchup for SGA. He does just feel like a free like 50 fantasy points or more, and you just kind of move on. We have some value, but not a lot of value. I think SGA is a fine spend, but not a priority spend. I'll at least say that. We got obviously other options here with Williams, Giddey, tons of different plays that you can go to here on the Thunder. But my problem is I just don't think I want to spin the roulette wheel on these Thunder options, right? I really just want to maybe kind of be lower on this game, whether it's SGA, and then just kind of move on. I think there's other spots that we're going to get to and discuss. We're going to talk about the Spurs, who are in a massive 250 total. We're going to talk about these Timberwolves here shortly. DC, is this a game to kind of stay away from here?
I think so. Yeah, I think you nailed it, where maybe I'm diving too much into narrative street tonight, but this does feel like a game where SGA at home against the Lakers, I don't know, you might just be like, I'm scoring 40 tonight, right? And nobody can really stop him from doing it if that's his intention. So I like SGA. It's hard to get to him at 10.5K, honestly. Even though I like him, like, I don't know if he's going to end up on many of my 20 teams that I'm playing. So he would be the guy from OKC, not playing Mr. Voldemort, he who cannot be named by me anymore. And then Chet Holmgren, I think, is a decent play as well for OKC. But yeah, this game is one where I'm going to be hoping it doesn't, live up to expectations or whatever, because I'm not really on the Lakers side at all. I guess Anthony Davis, you could go there, but back-to-back game, I don't know. I'm lower on this game than I think the field will be. I don't feel super comfortable about it, but that's just kind of where I stand on a 9-game slate.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. Like I said, I mean, I'm sure I'll get some SGA just because when I run my, lineups when I'm meeting, like he'll just fall in there because I have enough value on a team and it just makes sense, right? But that's it for me. Bryce, how about you? I mean, again, I'm not going to tell someone not to play SGA, but I'm also not going to tell someone to, lock him in your lineups and move on. What's your thoughts on SGA and the rest of this game?
SGA is kind of a player I'm always a buyer on. Like, I always end up with more SGA than the field. He's like a Julius Randle to me. I'm just typically higher than him on the field than the field. He is priced up here, but, there's decent value today. It's not like yesterday where there was like absolutely zero value until the Embiid news broke. So I'll definitely be getting some SGA today. I think Jalen Williams is a good play. I think Giddey's an okay play. And from the Lakers side, I think D'Angelo Russell's going to be overowned after what he did last night. And I kind of like Anthony Davis a bit. He's a guy like SGA where I'm always typically a buyer on those two players. So I'll have them in some builds. It's not like studs I would like really force, and like definitely wouldn't play either in cash. But I think they're solid tournament plays.
The Lakers did blow out the Pistons last night, so all their starters came out.
Yeah,
early.
I mean, Anthony Davis played like 29 minutes, so I'm not really worried about him and Braun on back-to-backs here.
Ready for a full workload here. And as good as SGA is, he does allow a lot of opportunities for blocks, right? Because he's just driving to the cup constantly. And it's not dunks, it's layups. So, yeah, I think Anthony Davis, potential ceiling game here. I like that call.
All right, let's move this thing along. We're gonna skip let's skip the Bucks game too. So we got those two games to go back to, the Spurs game and the Bucks game. Just because, who knows, we get Chicago news while we're on here. Let's go to Utah and Minnesota. Utah is a team that has Jordan Clarkson is questionable as well. Kind of forgot about that, but Minnesota is the key part that we got to talk about. Minnesota, we have Ant is doubtful. I'm assuming Ant just sits. I think that's how we're all handling this. Now, if Ant decides to play out of nowhere, which is very unlikely, that would really shake up the slate and change some stuff. Obviously, right now, though, with Minnesota, Karl-Anthony Towns, 8.8K. It's pricey, but I think he's in the conversation as a spend today. Rudy Gobert, it's a little revenge game for him, 7.4K. I think he is in play as a center option to go to. We talked about center being loaded, but I think he's one of those that has to be in the conversation. The key is, what are we doing with these value plays? Because there's I'd say three specific values to bring up. Kyle Anderson, 4.5K. I think it's a really nice spot for Kyle Anderson specifically, mainly because Ant Edwards soaks up so much usage, and it has to go somewhere else. And Kyle Anderson is a guy that will soak up that usage and, be able to use it well. So I think Kyle Anderson is a good play that we want to get exposure to. Naz Reid, I don't mind at 4 or 5, but I just think he's okay. I do think he's part of the Noah Fade list. If you follow our guy Bobby here on Twitter, this guy makes fun of Bobby's plays, and he made fun of Naz Reid, so accordingly. But Naz Reid, definitely someone I think that is a good value today. And then Nickeil Alexander-Walker at 4.9K. He's a good play on DK. He's a good play on FanDuel as well. DC, you are a Minnesota guy, so let me know what Minnesota options you are interested in with Ant Edwards likely sitting, and if there's any Jazz options you're looking to get in there as well.
Yeah, firstly, let me address the Bobby Hare. Follow him on Twitter, by the way. Our guy Bobby Hare posts his early core. What does he call it? A way too early core, I think, for NBA every day. I think it's every day. And then also every day, random dude named Noah, I don't know who he is, shits on one or two of the players in Bobby's core. And that player, it's 95% of the time has flames next to his name at the end of the night. So, yeah, you can do a lot worse than just whoever Noah shits on. Just get him in your core. Follow Bobby Hare. You'll get that information.
He shit on two players today, DC, by the way. He shit on two. He shit on Osborne and Caleb Martin. So we'll just let the people know. So go check that out if you want.
Yeah, which I'm going to disagree with everything I just said, because I do think the Timberwolves that are going to be super chalk in this game are too chalky. You go on these shows, right? And it's it would be easy to just recommend every highest owned play on the entire slate and say they're a good play. But the truth is, in DFS, you got to discern who's a good play at their ownership or not. And I think most of these Timberwolves are going to be over-owned today. Kyle Anderson, Naz Reid, Alexander Walker, all 40+% ownership on a 9-game slate. I don't think Naz Reid's role really changes at all, given that Cat and Gobert are both healthy. They can't play all three guys on the court at the same time. And Gobert and Cat's minutes aren't going anywhere. So I don't really think you can project Naz Reid for really any more minutes than he normally gets. Matchup is great. He's cheap. I get it. But 40% ownership seems crazy for him. Kind of the same thing for Kyle Anderson. I disagree with you a little bit, Mangone, about him soaking up usage. He's a very low usage player. He's not a scorer. So you take Anthony Edwards out of the lineup. I don't think Kyle Anderson is like jacking up threes. You know what I mean? Like it just.
Yeah, but he's facilitating more and he's driving. So I
get it. His projection deserves to go up. I'm just of the opinion that it doesn't deserve to go up as much as the ownership will reflect. So the guys that I really like from the Timberwolves, number one by far is Karl Anthony Towns. 8,800. He's playing awesome this year. And I think he's the guy who can soak up way more usage than he normally gets. He's the best shooting big man of all time, 40% three-point shooter. And you take Edwards out of the lineup, he's the guy who can, I think, get up 30% more shots than he normally does. So Towns is my favorite from the Wolves. I like Gobert too, who's just playing incredible this season. It seems like as part of this, the criticism of the Wolves trade to get Gobert, like this Wolves team, we'll see how long it lasts, but man, they're playing really, really well right now. And then Mike Conley, I know he's, a dust ball, but he played 37 minutes last game. You take Edwards out of the equation, I think if this game stays close, he's going to be out there. He's got a history with Utah. So, yeah, give me the starters here. Conley, Towns, Gobert, the guys coming off the bench. Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson might start, but Alexander Walker, he's going to start. But I'm off the peripheral pieces for the Wolves. I think they have a decent chance of busting in this spot, honestly. These aren't point guards, right, that are taking over a lead role. They're peripheral players, and I think their ownership is honestly a little unjustified. So that'll probably be my biggest stand, and it hurts me, right? I'm a Wolves fan. I want to play these guys, but I can't play them at 45% ownership.
No, I mean, it's a big stand too, for sure. It's not like, if you take one stand on a 1% guy, it's not a big stand, but you take a stand on some of these other guys, it's a big stand for sure. So for me, I'm not as excited about Mike Conley. I saw the 6.4K price tag and I was like, I just can't. It's but it's going to come with lower ownership. I will at least say that. People aren't going to really play him because it's a very high tag for him.
You do get leverage though, right? If you play the Wolves that aren't owned.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, I don't know. Just saying.
No, I agree with you on that. I don't know. I don't know what I'm doing with Nas. Nas is like the tough one for me because I'm not as excited about him. If I had to pick, I like Anderson more than Nas. If I had to pick one or the other. And then I like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, especially I think FanDuel's price is pretty good over there. Bryce, break down the Timberwolves side of the ball because obviously there's some good values here that we have to look at and consider. We have to make a decision on. Are we playing them? Are we fading them? What's your overall thoughts here on Minnesota?
I think Kyle Anderson's the best play here by a good margin in terms of value. He has the nickname Slow-Mo, but, his usage has been much better than people expect. And, I'm interested to see if that stays somewhat similar in the first unit. Anthony Edwards has done pretty much everything for this team. So I do like the Karl Anthony Towns call. I think Naz Reid is a decent under here. He's cheap, but it's not like he's getting
45%, Bryce. What's his call like this?
He's like the guy I play in cash, but aren't really happy about. And the guys that I play in cash that I'm not super intrigued on or in are great tournament fades in general. Like that's kind of like I've done that since the start of DFS. Like I make my cash team and the guys I don't really like, but I have to play in cash, is kind of like my tournament fade. So Naz Reid falls into that bucket for me. I think Walker's an okay play. I think he's a much better play on FanDuel. He can run into he needs peripheral stats more than scoring to get there. So I like him more there, and Karl Anthony Towns more of as like a DraftKings type of play. Like he scores and grabs rebounds. Like that's what you want. So yeah, I mean, the Timberwolves are in a really good spot here. I mean, at home against Utah's, up there for, like at home against the Pacers type of game. So they're all really solid plays in my opinion. Walker is going to be what I think is absolutely insane chalk on FanDuel. I'm seeing him projected close to 50 to 60%.
It's too high.
I'll probably end up with around 30% Walker. Going in about half the field on him sounds right to me. Kyle Anderson's the one that interests me the most here. And I agree with DC's Towns call. From the Utah side of the ball, I always think that like these guys are overowned because people force runbacks and like your cheap guys can get there regardless. And like people that are forcing runbacks in games, like will end up with more of like the other team that's playing like the value team of the day. So, I think that Utah is going to be overowned in general. Now, if Clarkson were to sit, that changes it because I would definitely want to play Utah if Clarkson sits. But other than that, they're pretty fairly priced to me, and no one really stands out on that side of the ball.
I agree with all that, Bryce. Sorry to cut you off, Mangone. But a comment from chat. Kessler minutes are coming out.
Kessler's a good point. I'm interested to see what they do with him on a back-to-back because his minutes were up a bit last night. So that would be – I do think a Walker Kessler explosion game is coming. I'm just not sure it's here on a back-to-back.
Well, let me say a couple things on Kessler. And honestly, I didn't really think of him until I saw this comment. One, Timberwolves drafted him and traded him to Utah. So there is absolutely some extra motivation from Kessler here. That was a big piece in the Gobert trade. And then the bigger thing, like the Wolves play big. They have two of Towns, Gobert, and Naz Reid on the court essentially at all times. You have to defend that in some way, and Kessler is certainly the way to do it for Utah. So it seems like a potential minutes ceiling game for Kessler. I kind of like that call. I don't think anybody's on him, but it does make some sense to me, especially if you're playing a couple Wolves with it.
The first game that Walker Kessler starts, I'm going to go absolutely ham on. I've been saying this for a while. He played 27 minutes last night. I think his minutes cap tonight will likely be around there. I think that's kind of his minutes ceiling at the moment.
I mean, it's been 3 games. This is his 4th game off injury. At this point, you would assume he's kind of a full go. I don't know.
A couple games ago, he had a 21 to 26 minutes cap, and the fact that he jumped that minutes cap is probably good, right? The fact that he did in one of the games.
He's healthy. I mean, there's no reason he can't play 33 minutes. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
I agree. I just worry about him on back-to-back is my thing. Like his minutes got increased last game. He's on the back-to-back, but as DC said, size. It's kind of like the Philly situation last night. Like if they want to start small against Minnesota, it's likely not going to go well. Unless you really have the shooting to spread them out and totally fuck them. As you've seen teams do to like Gobert in the playoffs. But it's not the playoffs. So I don't think that's like a huge worry. I think you should go bigger against them. And we'll see if they do. This is one of the reasons Travis was all over like chilling on the 7 p.m. game. Because we'll get some of this news rolling in right around 6:30.
Yeah, we did just get news on Jimmy Butler on track to play, which is encouraging for when we talked about Jimmy Butler. We like him in this spot, so he'll be a stud I'm definitely spending on.
He's going to play, Butler.
Yeah, he's on track, ready to go. So let's shift over to let's go to Atlanta and San Antonio. So we don't know Wembanyama news. If he sits, that's going to shake up the whole slate. We'll obviously be in Discord breaking all that down for you guys. But this is a 248 total. It's one of the best games on the slate. Also, really good matchups. Like, for instance, DC talked about center being loaded. Well, you know why it's loaded? Because we got Clint Capella and Okongwu at 5-7 and 5K in really good matchup against the Spurs that, yes, they're going to split minutes, but at their prices, they're worth looking at. We have Trae Young is a really good spend at 9.7K. We know point guards absolutely torch the San Antonio Spurs. And then, of course, we have all these other Hawks that you can mix and match throughout your lineups, like Bogdanovich. I think he's an interesting option. Sadiq Bey, you can make a case for. Overall, there's a lot of options to discuss here. DC, how are you handling the Hawks and the Spurs?
This is a tough one, I think. I think, like, anyone projected for 30-plus minutes in this game is a reasonable play. But at the same time, I don't see anything here that I feel like I need to play. Obviously, that could change a little bit if Wembanyama does end up sitting. My favorite play in this game, and I guess I'm just riding narrative street on this Thursday afternoon, is DeJounte Murray coming back to San Antonio, right? They traded this guy. I mean, I thought it was crazy when they traded DeJounte Murray. Like, he seems like a franchise cornerstone type of player to me. He's been having a great season. I know he's had a couple down games in a row, but look at who that was against. At Cleveland, at Boston. Prior to that, he had put up 40 points, 3 straight games. And, I mean, these players are still human beings. I would be shocked if DeJounte Murray wasn't planning to have a big game back in San Antonio for the team that traded him. So 8,200 for him at low ownership. I think he's got a ton of upside. So I'll keep it short. DeJounte Murray I'm going to have a lot of, and I'll probably mostly look elsewhere in this game. Wembanyama missing could change that a little bit.
Yeah, Wembanyama stuff will be really big. We got to wait on that, though. And that's going to – who knows what's going to happen with it. I have no idea. I'm curious to hear what you think, Bryce, on this one. Obviously, there's some good options here. I think Jeremy Sochan is a good play with or without Wembanyama in. I think he made a case that Keldon Johnson could have a really nice ceiling performance here. He has the ability to get 50 DK points, and he's in the 7K range. I mean, it's obviously someone that has to, I think, be in your tournament player pool. So what's your overall thoughts here on the Spurs and the Hawks?
If I had to guess, I would guess Wemby in. I typically always guess guys in just because they're easier to take out than they are to put in. Like, unless it's like an Anthony Edwards who's doubtful. Like, doubtful guys I always project is out. So to me, I would guess Wemby's in. Get good with late swap because, it's going to be a heavy late swap slate. With all the games pretty much starting between 7:30 and 8, like you're going to have mad switches at like 7:29. So try and if you're hand building, try and have some contingency plans. If you're using an opto, make sure that you know how to use the opto well. Saberson does a great job at late swapping. It's one of the huge pluses for it in NBA. So yeah, after that sidebar, there's good plays all around here. I think Zach Collins profiles really well on FanDuel. Could be a really good stock game for him. And then on DraftKings, he's definitely still in play, but I like Sochan on both sides. I like Keldon Johnson on DraftKings specifically. His scoring is really, conducive to DraftKings scoring system. In terms of Atlanta side of the ball, I mean, fire them all up. I think Trae Young's, up there with Jimmy Butler for my favorite play of the day. Murray. My only worry on Murray is that like everyone's going to be thinking about the narrative street, and he's going to come in a little bit higher owned. It's like everyone's like,
Bryce. Come on, Bryce. No one's thinking.
It's like
ownership.
I might be giving people too much credit.
Yes,
because it's like Trae Young is going to be high owned. Murray revenge game. Oh, go pivot to Murray because Trae's going to be high owned. I think he's a great pivot personally. So I definitely agree with you there. I just hope I'm not over.
I'm seeing DeJounte at 6% ownership.
Yeah, I'll be over 6% DeJounte, guaranteed. I'll probably be around 20 if I had to guess. A 3x buy sounds about right on this slate to me. I mean, look at the fucking total. it's absurd. I mean, it's a great stock matchup for him too. If you're playing on FanDuel. So
that's what I'm saying. The matchup, like you don't even need the narrative, but
I mean, he's 7.9. He's 7.9K on FanDuel. He could run into like a 6 steal game and score 25 points.
Against the Spurs,
him and Trey could both get there. Is the thing.
Show the Spurs what's up, DeJounte. That's what's going to happen tonight.
All right. Well, and then to get to Atlanta's secondary pieces, I think both centers are good plays. I think DeAndre Hunter is a solid play. I even think Sadiq Bey is a pretty solid play. He's someone that people are going to really overlook on the slate, and he should play 30 minutes in a super fast-paced matchup, which is obviously a good thing for him. So
I feel like this game is the one that's going a little overlooked that could absolutely nuke and see, 140 to 136, something crazy.
Yeah, definitely going to be a good game. And listen, if Wembanyama plays, no one's going to play him. And against the Hawks, fire that up. So don't ignore him. That's going to be important news that we're waiting on. We got 2 games left, and I will say it's probably 2 games we breezed past pretty quick. One reason is because I don't know what to say about the Bulls without the news, right? DeRozan, LaVine. Listen, I don't want to play any of these guys unless I have the news, and it's hard to talk about the Bulls right now. And then when it comes to the Bucks, they're just expensive, right? I mean, we don't have amazing value. I think we have okay value on this slate, but it's hard to get Giannis out of your teams. Damian Lillard's 9.1K. I just don't see a lot to like in this game, DC. How about you?
I'm with you. It's probably somewhat of a leak, but I never play any Bulls. It's just I don't. Yeah. You look at the points per game that you guys are putting up, and they're not bad plays based on my salary, but I just never get there. It's going to be the case tonight. Not on the Bulls. I will say Giannis, I think, is a decent spend up. Chicago's arguably the worst rebounding team in the entire league. They can't defend the rim, right? Vooch is a good scorer. He's a horrific defensive center, which is part of why Chicago is struggling so bad. Giannis can just get to the rim whenever he wants. So I think he's an interesting spend if you're trying to get contrarian, but I don't have a ton from this game, honestly.
All right, Bryce, how about you? Any interest in the Bulls and the Bucks?
Yeah, I like Giannis a lot, especially if you get some more value to fit him in. He is my favorite spend of the slate. I like him more than SGA.
He can score any possession he wants. He can just drive and score. Which,
especially on FanDuel. Playing Giannis on FanDuel is been a cheat code for years. He always seems to go under-owned when you don't have great value. And the Minnesota value is okay. I don't think it's great as we've been through. On the Chicago side of the ball, we'll do this real quick. If DeRozan and LaVine play, I don't want anything to do with them. If one of them sits, I like the other one. If they both sit, then I'll be on a bunch of Bulls. So I'm expecting them both to play here. They've been god awful, and they kind of need them playing because they can't. Billy Donovan's going to get punted soon if this team doesn't get turned around.
They got to punt the whole team in Chicago.
I mean, they should punt the whole. They should have punted the whole team years ago. But but I think they play because they realize that the team's going to get punted.
Yeah, makes sense.
All right, let's move on. Last game, and again, I think another quick one. Golden State and the Clippers. I don't see anything to get excited about here. Draymond is back. That obviously muddies some stuff up on the Warriors a bit. Clippers have been an absolute disaster, and I just don't see anything I really want to buy into here. What about you, DC?
I have almost nothing from this game. I
got one play. Moses Moody.
What about you? I'm off this game. Playing nobody.
Moses Moody is a solid play today. There's no Wiggins. There's no Gary Payton. If Moses Moody starts here, or even if he's the sixth man, I think that's pretty solid salary relief, especially on DraftKings. He's 4.3K.
He's got to have 25 minutes.
Yeah,
I mean, I personally think Moses Moody is a good play.
I overlooked him. He's annoying, but
I haven't projected at 28 minutes here. I think he has a sizable role in this game. Other than that, I don't really want anything to do with the game. I think Draymond Green is a fine play on FanDuel where you can rack up some stocks. Excuse me. I don't like the Clippers side of the ball at all. But yeah, Moses Moody stands out as a value to me.
One thing too about Moody that makes sense is like he's in that position where like you could see them up big in the fourth, and then he just like gets the full closeout, right? Like, and he absolutely just destroys. Like, so
he can get there in multiple ways, Mangone, right? Like, he doesn't necessarily need a blowout, but if he gets it, like, those are the plays you want to play when they have multiple paths to a big score, right? To the
it's like he's like a quickly type of play, just in a worse matchup, but cheaper.
It's a great call. Yeah, it's a great call.
Yeah, no, he's definitely in play. I remember seeing him earlier when I was doing stuff, and I was like, I'll go back to him, and just forgot about him. So
I just remembered it because I've been doing pre-show notes just so, like, I can, start getting better at, like, just getting straight to the plays because I realized that, we almost always run into the 6 p.m. show. So I had that one written down from the start. But yeah, I mean, I think
don't apologize. You're one of the biggest winners. Hey, hear me out. You're one of the biggest winners in DFS history, and we're lucky to have you here giving your thoughts. So don't apologize for giving your thoughts on players. That's what people want to see. It's what RPS brings to the table. So absolutely.
Yeah, no, Moody's definitely someone, and especially if you don't like the Timberwolves values, right? Or you have some caution with them. Like, you could obviously see, Moody be one of those good plays to put on there. So let's go over to the plays of the day. We got the 6 o'clock show coming up next, so check that out on the premium side. Also, you guys could please hit that like. We'd appreciate it over here at Run Pure, and subscribe to the channel. Check out all the content, especially the NFL Showdown content, which is already up. If you want to watch that, it was at 3 p.m. It was with JSU and Big T, so check out that Cowboys in Seattle Showdown show. Let's go to the plays of the day, though. DC, I will go over to you first, though. Who do you got? Who is your Snyder Soldiers play of the day?
We're going a little revenge narrative tonight. I think DeJounte Murray flexes on his former team, the San Antonio Spurs, 8.2K. You can play him point guard or shooting guard, so he's got some positional flexibility and just a perfect spot to show your former team what's up. DeJounte Murray, Mom's Basement play of the day.
All right, let's go over to you, Bryce. We got the Snyder Soldier for you. Who is it? Who is your play of the day?
Talked him up all show. We'll go with Jimmy Butler. Love him in this matchup. Hopefully people get off him with, like, the Q tag.
Well, they might get off him if, like, news hits and, like, other guys are ruled out, right? Like, sometimes someone like those good plays, like early.
I don't think Jimmy Butler is going to be owned regardless of what happens.
So yeah, we got Brandon Miller just ruled out now, which, like, people are going to go to Bridges, right? So that's the news that just hit on that. That'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Obviously, up to Lock Show will break that all down. My Snyder Soldier play of the day for you is it's a center that we talked about earlier. It's in a pretty good matchup. It's Mitchell Robinson, a little bit of a contrarian center pivot that you want to go to. So that'll be my guy there. But that is going to wrap it up for us on the NBA Hardwood Show. Thanks a lot for joining. We'll be back tomorrow with some more content. We'll have tons of NFL content tomorrow. It's Friday. We're going into the weekend with some football tonight, and then we got the college football this weekend. So should be an overall great time. But for me, Mangone, DC, and Bryce, we'll see you guys later.